screen with you. So I'm going to come over to here and start talking about what I've been up to during the year of COVID, as I know many of you as well have had your lives changed. So first of all, I want to thank any of you that are watching that you're taking the time. I'm actually testing out a new format of a lot of different pieces of information and trying to put them together into an interesting format, trying to do about 20 to 30 minute segments for each show. So this is my first prototype here on testing it out. So one of the things I feel like I've learned from the COVID experience is that when we are true to ourselves and figure out ways to be a better version of ourselves, that's when we are of service to humanity, and that's when we can really truly help other people. So I feel like one of the things that I worked through was connecting and accepting very different aspects of myself and putting them together into a more holistic presentation. So I ended up starting a website about a couple years, maybe 3 years ago. It's my full name, ericaswensonelliott.com. And think about this in your own life too. How do you connect the dots about yourself? Like many of you out there that I've spoken with personally, we are masters of many things, especially as you get up there and you've lived a pretty, long, robust life like myself. So I came out of college when I was 21 and I became a CPA, and I started at Arthur Andersen as a 21-year-old, which was an amazing place to learn and work. I'm still friends with many of those people today. I took about 5 years to get my CPA license and experience. I had to actually go back, and I worked in the tax department. So that was a very intense career, as you can imagine. I spent about 15 years in Big Four public accounting. It was Big 8 at the time I started. And there was parts of me I had to set aside while I was in that very deep technical learning journey. It was right when computers were coming out. It was 1989 was my first tax season. So this is my 32nd coming up. And I still work on my own, doing people's taxes and helping them as part of my service to humanity, which we all do in various guises. So at the end of the day, one of the things that ended up happening is I ended up writing a book that led to other books. So it was trying to explain to people how you can be more than one thing in your life. So as of this time period, here's the first book I wrote about my life and how I met my husband, hence the name Love and Taxes. And he had amazing business stories. So at first I just started writing those books so I could end up sharing his business knowledge. But it got stronger and in a better story format when it became more personal and about ourselves. So it was more authentic when it was not just stories. So that was hard because you had to put yourself out there, right? And you had to, first of all, figure out who you were. So that's definitely a part of the last 5 years of my journey, was this writing this book and then the follow-up Love and Business. So you can see on the cover of this book, in each book, actually there's original art. So that was something I set aside when I became a tax accountant and, worked around the clock and worked weekends, worked holidays, worked when everyone else was down the shore. I was in Philly, that's what we called it, down the shore, Philadelphia. We didn't call it the beach. I don't know why, that's a different story. But when I was going through that aspect, I didn't have time to make art because I didn't have time to eat lunch. I didn't have time to make dinner. So art was definitely something that I didn't do. So when I met my husband, Keith, who was my second husband, I had 2 daughters with my first husband. And that's part of this journey that I talked about, is like those difficulties and how I grew and learned from those experiences. When we got married, Keith and me, he was already retired. So that was unusual. And people were always asking us questions about, well, how did you two get together? And we got together because I was his tax accountant. So when people would say, well, how did you two meet? I would say it was love and taxes. So some of you might be familiar with the expression death and taxes. This is my little, uplifting play on that expression. So I'll just read you the back cover of this book. I actually wrote this book to help people see the path that I followed, and how when things aren't always clear, as long as you are being true to yourself and trying to find out who that is, it might be really scary, but you're never going to regret that period of growth that you went through. And ideally, you want to be growing and expanding all of the time, not just, in a 1 year period. So here's the back cover of Love and Taxes. What if your destined greatest love is hiding in your tax return? This book is a delicious sort of hybrid. Yes, it's a fascinating love story of a powerhouse CEO and his unusual tax accountant, which would be me, but it also holds the virtue of being true. Their tale is woven through with precious nuggets of timeless advice and clever, practical business principles. The wisdom-filled proverbs are there for the legions of today's entrepreneurs who need guidance and support. Inspiring, romantic, and filled with savvy expertise you won't get anywhere else. So that's a little information about that. Some of my friends are in there incognito, and other family members. So there's little, for those of you that know me, just a little bit more info on there about each book. So you can see that trying to explain to people that you're a tax expert, but you like writing and you like making art, like that's hard. So it took me a few years, and especially with COVID, it helped me start to piece those pieces together in a more cohesive format. And then I really enjoyed, what I was doing, because I wasn't losing myself. I was finding myself and becoming a better version of myself. So, okay, that's a little bit of an intro. I did the book introduction. So I think the format I'd like to play with a little bit is I wanted to do in each video, start with a tax minute and just give a little technical information out there to help people that are trying to do things for themselves. Might be afraid. We all know there's lots of scams going on. So we get afraid of phone calls. One thing you should never, the IRS does not call you. They send correspondence. So, and they have their own website, irs.gov, G-O-V. So I would suggest don't just Google IRS. You want to make sure you're on irs.gov, because there's lots of fraudulent criminals out there that create similar websites to make you think that you're on the IRS website. So it's always blue. It's been blue as long as I've known it, since it's been up. This particular page, the tax minute I was going to give you for today, is that the individual tax returns have been extended from the normal April 15th to May 17th. So you might remember last year during COVID, it went to July 15th. So if you have a balance due, tax due with your return, then you would, and that would be a lot of you self-employed people out there, you have until May 17th to pay the tax and to either file an extension or file the tax return. Just going to take a sip of water here. So that's your little tax minute for today. Oh, one other little fact I was going to talk about. The tax laws have been changing on, it seems like on the fly, between the last 18 months, regardless of who was in presidency. And the last set of changes where they excluded, I think, the first $10,400 of unemployment income was passed into law in March. Well, unfortunately, all the software had already been updated, starting back in December. I use ProConnect, which is owned by Intuit, for my practice. And now people have filed returns in February, right? So what do they have to do? They have to update the software to equal the tax laws. So if you wanted to exclude that first $10,000 of income from your unemployment compensation, which I know actually seems weird that that would be compensation, but it is, you have to go and amend the return. And it could be worth a couple $100, so it's worth doing it, especially if you're doing it yourself, because that was not in the software if you filed back in February. Okay, so just so you know about that. Okay, then the next segment I was going to incorporate into each of these little videos is I was going to talk about, I'm calling it elegant turf. And why am I calling it elegant turf? Let's see if I have it on this page here. A lot of tax law, a significant portion of tax law is driven around real estate. Now, it could be being a landlord, it could be an Airbnb, short-term rental landlord. You might own your home, you might be renting. So everyone's living somewhere. You could be living on a boat. You could be living, your residency could be in an RV. So there's a lot of tax law things that can incorporate those unusual circumstances. Now this thing, this beautiful place, I've worked with clients that are literally homeless, barely surviving, to all the way to billionaires and multi-millionaire people throughout my career. So I've had a lot of experiences. One family I'm working with now is to help them market a very unique property. And when a property is unique like this one, this is outside of Pittsburgh. It's called Dunrobin Castle. It's 10 acres, almost 11 acres. And this price has actually come down. It was listed at 4.9, and it's actually at 4.250. Now here it is. Here's the website. This is the website, 100 Dunrobin Lane. So, this was a work of love by a family that had small children, were growing up there. Now the children are grown up. They're moving into other aspects of their life. But as entrepreneurs, this is probably the best value in real estate in America today. So I say that because every engineering feat that you could think of was done in this house. So it's the facades, the pointing on the bricks, the types of windows are all meant to not have to be, redone. The thing I find interesting about this house is, besides the fact that the pricing of it and where it's located, it's a pretty interesting property to be run as a small boutique hotel or a unique kind of Airbnb property. I also view it as a getaway home for people fleeing Beverly Hills and California, so, and places that are in significant trouble from an administrative standpoint with state governments. So the nice thing about here is there's a little private airport right nearby. I've also viewed this as a group of retirees maybe that want to run an Airbnb. There's ability here to have stables. You can have 7 bedrooms, there's a pool, you could have a car museum, you could have a vineyard there, which are all great tax strategies. So it's actually an income producing property if there's a group of people that were interested in going in with that, which of course would lead to tax things like LLC. So that's one interesting thing I'm doing. One of the thing I loved about working with this family is they gave us the opportunity to promote their house. And this is like a legacy thing as well. Right here, we made a book with over 250 pictures in it. I have one right here. We just ended up finding a hardback one that Barnes & Noble would do for us, my publisher and myself. She helped me write this book. There's 250 pages in it. So the cool thing about this product is, like, if you had a unique family property that you were selling or a car collection, like, this is a way you could end up keeping it with you after you sell it. So there's amazing stuff in this home. There's pillars from Tuscany and Belgium and all kinds of cool things. So we have it here on the real estate page as well. We get to some details about it. I don't know who's going to get it, but it's going to be here's some of the pictures from inside the book that we put together. So we kind of document in the book all the interesting details that were built into the place, the engineering feats. There's an aerial shot of it. So regardless, the book is eye candy. So I call it like the coffee table eye candy book. So I'm John Robin Castle. You can find it on Amazon. The hardback is only on Barnes & Noble because Amazon doesn't apparently do that anymore. Okay, so then we talked about, that's the elegant turf topic. So if we're testing out this prototype, the next thing I was going to do was a tech talk corner in each video. So the tech talk, I'm going to come over to some of my a closed group I'm working inside of. It's called this is the Optimized Tribe. A lot of you are going to be familiar with these if you watch a lot of YouTube videos. Michael Jaco and Jay Campbell, they had both been shut down many times on the channels. So here's some of their background bios. They've created a closed community where you can pay a subscription and you can buy, I think the lowest level of subscription is $30 a month. And then you can do like an upgrade, $99 a month. And it's basically like your cable. You could like cancel your cable subscription. A lot of the people that their voices have been suppressed and quieted down by big tech have been able to come in as guests inside of this closed community. So it's like you're watching cable. If you're old enough and you remember like 1982 when cable was first coming out, there was no commercials, if you believe that, and you just were paying for your subscription and you got to watch those closed channels. So I would at least try it for a month. It's a way to get information that is not being talked about in the regular traditional old school model. So the reason why I'm bringing this up in this group, besides promoting them, and they've helped me figure out how I want to do my own communications on different digital platforms like YouTube and other places. So I feel like I've heard a number of things from prominent people in the news media like Jaco and Campbell, is that there's three issues, I think, with technology and how do you defend and protect your platform? Because one of the interesting things that happened to both of them is once their channels, and they're not the only ones, once their channels were locked down and their videos taken from them, all of a sudden they were pirated and now they're put up on someone else's channel that they didn't know. And that other anonymous channel was allowed to monetize it, and YouTube therefore can make money off of Michael Jaco and off of Jay Campbell and exclude them from making any money. Why? How is that possible? I don't know. But it seems like that has to be some kind of like uniform commercial code violation. And for all of you lawyers out there that understand class action, I mean, even if you wouldn't go after free speech, would you have the ability to do a class action on unfair business practices under the Uniform Commercial Code. I mean, it seems like in theory you should at least should be discussed, because there's thousands of people that this has happened to. So basically, this is modified and made me think about how I wanted to communicate and promote things. So I just decided I'm not going to try to monetize my channel through YouTube itself or other ventures. I just decided in each of my videos, I'm going to talk about my products and my content. So we talked about my book content. I'd like to also talk about what I've done from the art side, which is fun. So, and it brings it all kind of together. So we'll get into that. But I decided to focus on 3 things to protect my content, and I'm calling it DRI, just decentralize, replication, and independence. So decentralize, I decided, and this is through the Optimized Tribe. I connected with one of the members in there, and he talked to me and got me onto the idea of a cloud-based subscription server. So a digital server. So that's very different from a physical server sitting, in your house. So now obviously this is still something that you can't physically control then, because, it's not in your clutches, it's out there in the digital ocean per se. But the good thing about this would be if I can put my videos up onto here, onto DigitalOcean, because I'm recording this Zoom one, and if YouTube isn't, connected yet, and I finally uploaded onto YouTube, then I can connect this video saved in my DigitalOcean, my server, my cloud-based server, and then I can send it out to wherever I want to share it. So there's a tool called Zapier, Zapier, that I think would do that automation. It basically automates a lot of things. So that's another technical subscription that I pay for and use. So that particular tool could then take the same thing out here on DigitalOcean, this video from today, and then I could send it to YouTube, send it to Gab TV, it could send it to the Matadon. It could put a link onto Twitter. I canceled my Twitter, so that's not that's not an option for me. But so that would be a replication. So that coming back to that code DRI. So decentralized would be spreading it everywhere. Replication, it's on this server, DigitalOcean, it's saving it multiple copies. So here's the thing, if you're making videos and you just send it right up to YouTube, once they delete it, it's gone. So if you're trying to control and archive your content, your original content, and create a trail and be able to replicate it and re-access it again, I would suggest using something like this. I have Google as my business platform that I save items onto as well, but I think the DigitalOcean is at the beginning of being able to kind of create your own streaming service from there. So I'm going to start playing with this. This is new for me. Okay, so moving on to the last thing with independence. So one of the reasons why I like Gab.com, which I first initially heard about, I think 2 years ago on Tucker Carlson's show, which I no longer watch Fox, so I'm glad I saw this back then. Andrew Torba is the founder of Gab, and if you listen to some of the traditional news media people, they will tell you it's like this is like the evil Satan of the world, which is, I think, the exact opposite, because it's a place where free speech is protected. Now I'm talking about independence here because based on my reading and understanding, I think Gab owns more of their infrastructure than any other platform out there. So some of the platforms like Parler have been used apparently as honeypots to kind of draw in people that didn't necessarily agree with the mainstream media, and they were operating like Gab, and then all of a sudden it was shut down. And how did that happen? It was because it wasn't as purely independent. They didn't own some of their physical pipe. So Gab has actually had to build its own processors to collect payment because they've been shut off, because they're one of the few spots left where you can actually speak your mind. So, and sadly, including myself, a lot of us, your video is deleted, it's banned, shadow banned. You think it went out to your friends, but your friends didn't see it. So I started using Gab. So one of the things I did in here, this is my profile, so you can find me if you sign up. You can do a free account. It's 100% funded though by Gab subscribers. So there are no private equity, billionaire hedge funds behind Gab, which is why they come and approach him all the time. So Andrew Torba turns them down, because he knows that's when you're no longer free, because now you're owned. Now you're a slave for someone else because they own you. So I subscribe. That's why you see my donor and my pro down here. So I do a monthly subscription, and then I do an additional amount. And you do what you can afford, but they are 100% funded by the users. So the other fun thing I did in this group is I started this Travel the World group. And if you want to understand a little bit more how Gab is different, I would call it like a blend between Facebook and Twitter. So you can have like your groups, but you can also let people join them. So it's not as personal as Facebook originally started. So you can see with this group, I think I started it, in November. You can see over on the right. And there's 1,900 members in here already, which is crazy to me, but in a good way. So one of the reasons why I think that that happened is because Andrew Torba actually sent my group out and promoted it. And he, of course, is the one that founded Gab. So when he did that, people saw it because I didn't have any followers, right? No one knew who I was inside of Gab. So the cool thing about this one is if you like traveling, you can post your pictures and anywhere in the world. And it's been really, really cool seeing what people have been putting up. So this group right here, the Budget Savvy Travelers, they basically went all around the world during COVID, and they're in Albania. They're posting pictures at least from there from now, which is very cool. So Gab is still independent. And I would encourage you to at least try out the free account. Okay, so I think then that last thing I want to talk, I'm going to do my last segment, which is I'm calling talk about for now. And basically this is like a free session where we figure out to kind of talk about anything. So I'm going to just, before we go into that detail, I'm just going to come back here for a moment and show you this via art projects. So one of my business partners, Shannon, and I have worked on this brand via art projects. So if you come to my website, ericaswensonelliott.com, you will see I have embedded this free digital magazine. This is the second one we did. I think it sounds so cool. My publisher helped me get this. Doesn't that look cool? I hear love the clicking sound. But when we talk about, this is a condo we marketed in Columbia, South Carolina, that little tiny condo around the corner from there that's sold now. But I was showing you this. One of the reasons why we called it via art projects is art is an acronym. To me, it's like coming back all the way around: art, real estate, and taxation. So they kind of all circle into each other. So that's a lot of my theme. You can see with the real estate ties into taxes a lot. Art helps market everything. Shannon and I talk about art is the needle that weaves and pulls everything through. So that's via art projects, and the taxation part, and this is coming back to Fidelity, if you can believe that or not. But Fidelity Charitable. So this was started by Fidelity Investments. This is like good and bad. So they've been around for a long time. They have a great platform, and it's basically giving taxpayers who have a significant gift to make. And even think about this. Someone's older, they don't have any kids, they want to make a charitable bequest, and they need the deduction, in this year, but they have no idea who they want to give the money to because they don't have a good relationship with the charity yet. So let's just say it's like, your mom or your dad, but that wouldn't be a good example. Just say it's you're 65, 70. And so you want to make a gift from your IRA, your pension, maybe, another asset that you inherited. So you go to Fidelity Charitable and they let you park it with them. So you get the taxable gift in that year. It's called a donor advised fund. Sorry, I'm a little scratchy here. I'm an allergy girl, so I have to keep my throat watered. So if we'll use $10,000. So you give them the money. We'll keep it kind of simple. And then you have a year to pick one of their 501c3s. So you would think that the universe of tax-exempt organizations that are approved by the IRS, that you would be able to pick them. Well, Fidelity Charitable just did something quite political, in my opinion. So if any of you are familiar with Project Veritas, who is a group of not that many people, started by this guy, James O'Keefe. Fearless group of people. You might not agree with what they do, but what if this was you? So they went undercover and outed a lot of people doing a lot of bad things. You can go find out about them for yourself and come up to your own opinion. 501c3. Many people right here donate to Project Veritas. Well, Fidelity Charitable just eliminated them as a potential donee because they didn't approve of Project Veritas's mission statement. So now, what if you made a gift and you didn't know that? What if there's someone else on their list? So you have to be a little bit careful when, as my husband Keith says, the executive, people get a little funny with money and they like to control what they have. So that's kind of, to me, like policy making now. So be a little careful if you're one of those people out there. See who is on their excluded list, and if they don't give you good answers, maybe come up with a different conclusion. So that was my talk about segment. I think the last thing I wanted to end on is I wanted to come back to my shop. So if you were here back on my website, this is about spreading a little bit of light. There's enough darkness in the world today. So I decided I'm not making any of this dark art with people's heads getting chopped off, and that's not me anyway. But I'm like, that there's enough people making black art, let's call it. So I'm focused on pretty art. So if you clicked on shop, it would take you to this tab. This is my Shopify page. And this is where there's a lot of people involved in helping me with all these things. I'm going to go through them and acknowledge them at the end, which I thank each and every one of them. So all of these things, I'm trying to bring a little more love and light into the world and make the world a happier place and connect us. So, and you can kind of see that theme here on my homepage, Make Yourself at Home. And we have them in categories. So Shannon and Arnell and Navarro all helped me on this platform. So when you purchase any of the art from here, you are supporting a network of entrepreneurs. So thank you. Here's these are all my original watercolors. So that are on these different products. So this is another digital use. You might be an artist and this might be of interest to you. This is probably artwork that I made over 10, 15 years. And here's some little blog. I just figured out how to add blog posts into here. So the cool thing is some of these watercolors, like this one with the dolphins, it's like about this big. That one I kind of liked. It's supposed to look like musical lines and the dolphins are going through it. This one's over here is actually a 6-foot painting. This one's has plumber's joint compound in it, has acrylic paint mixed in it. These are tote bags that are like very popular. So you can see these travel the world ones are we spend a lot of time cruising, and so therefore my global office is my laptop. I can kind of work from anywhere, but you can see I have some of these like cruise elements on there, poolside on the deck. That's the Navigator is the name of the boat or the ship that we were on. This is I like to paint a lot while I'm on deck, and do the views from around. So this is Cartagena, Colombia, while we were up on the deck. These paintings here is my Warrior series. My friend Lulu, she talked to me about this artist, Stephen Biss, B-I-S-S. I know that's his last name. He was a Native American. He's now unfortunately passed away. He does these like really haunting, this style. I'm not a copyist, but this was kind of my take on some of his cool art. So it takes a lot of time. That's why I can't do all this by myself. So I'm like the one creating the watercolors, and then Shannon and Arnell are like researching products to put it on and applying it. I've actually done some myself too, but I'm not as fast as those two. One of the things I've been having fun with is this quotas. I'm wearing one of these today. I'll see if I can back up and show it to you. You can see free will is my superpower. These are rash guards that are like 38 to 40% of the UPF rating. So this is my sense of humor. If you haven't figured it out already, it's like a little smart aleck. But so Urban Monk, I think, is hilarious. And then this one here, this is the last one I'll talk about. So these are all the little words of tax code. So I started making tax art about 10 years ago, and this is my latest take on it. I'll just read you this little blurb. After a career in U.S. taxation, she's keenly aware of the undue burden that overtaxation creates. As we know, a picture is worth 1,000 words. So if we see many types of taxation as well as tax definitions all combined into one image, it's very powerful. The burden of taxation on tax-paying citizens does become quite clear. And taxation can become a form of art too, almost a tattoo on the skin of the taxpayer, intense yet true. For example, federal income tax, FIT, estate tax, death tax, state income tax, AMT, foreign earned income exclusion, value added tax, the VAT tax, SALT, which is state and local tax, self-employment tax, one full page of tax terms, centered alignment, 45-degree angle upwards. Upwards, we all move upwards. Same set of tax terms in full imprint on the front, back, and 360-degree left sleeve, which is, I think, what I like the best. I like the tattoo thing, like the football guys have, but it's all like tax words on there. And then I have the website, like a little arch over on this arm. So that way when you like wreck the shirt and you need a new one, you can come to the site and find it again. So don't be afraid to be yourself. Be true to yourself, whatever that is. So don't be afraid. Come out onto your digital platform and show the world what you got. So that's my prototype show for today. And then I'm going to end up with my acknowledgements here. This show would not be possible without the hard work and support of marketing director and agent Shannon Putt, not Put, P-U-T-T, marketing and technology expert Navarro at Max Lev Solutions, who connects all these dots and makes this whole thing work for me when I break stuff. Digital Tax Technology, BBE, that's my digital accounting firm brand name out there, BizBooks expert. Arnell Mios, who is my senior accountant at BBE. He's a CPA from the Philippines, and he's a watercolorist as well, like me, art and tax. So you can find him, that's his watercolor channel. And then my publisher who publishes my books is at Arnica Press. So when you buy any of my books, digital content, art, or original products, you are supporting all of my acknowledged participating partners and some contractors. So onward. Okay, and then the last thing we're going to do is we're going to end with a little mudra. And a mudra is yoga postures with your hands. We're going to do Mudra of Divine Worship, which Sabrina Mesco is my teacher in this. And I'll put her in the links as well. But when you bring your hands together, praying hands, center of your chest, and we're going to do a long, deep, slow breath through your nose. This is how I stay calm and carry on when I'm balancing tax problems in my head. Right, we'll do an inhale, exhale. Inhale, exhale. You want to keep your neck long, your shoulders down, your chin parallel to the floor, straight back. I'm going to show you her book, and I also have a video on my website. I have a blog that has a post about with a bunch of videos in there. So Sabrina, is a good friend of mine. She's taught me a lot. There's over 400 mudras. This is an easy one. We all know this one. Praying hands. Set your timer for 3 minutes at least, and you can thank God that you're alive today and be grateful. So when we are grateful and be true to ourselves, we're happier and we make the world a better place. So namaste, carry on. And let me figure out how to turn this thing off.